Jealous stepsister tried to sabotage my wedding. I exposed her lies to her husband. Now they're divorcing and my parents blame me. Noah, 25M, my fiancé and partner of nearly 7 years, and I, 25F, recently got married. Everyone in my family, including my stepsister Charlotte, 24F, was invited to the wedding. When Charlotte was 8 years old and I was 9, our parents were married. Since we had previously known each other for a few years, we were okay with my mother's marriage to her father at the time. Prior to their marriage, our parents had been together for over 3 years. More precisely, she was 5 and I was 6 when we first met. We got along really well at first. Since I didn't have many kids to play with in my area, I was always excited when Charlotte and her father visited, and we had a blast. We kept up a good friendship as we got older, and up until middle school, I thought of her as a close friend. When we joined high school, things started to shift, and regrettably, a boy named Noah was the reason for it all. During my mother's pregnancy, my father had cheated on her with a friend. After being caught, he signed away his parental rights and decided he didn't want anything to do with us. We never saw him again after he and his girlfriend moved away. My mother didn't seek child support because my grandparents were wealthy and provided for her. I never met my biological father as a result. The first father figure in my life was my stepfather. Due to health issues exacerbated by pregnancy, Charlotte's mother had died when she was quite young. Full custody of her was with her father, and I was with my mother. Charlotte and I spent all of our time together when our parents moved in together after courting. It was great to have someone my own age as a buddy. Up until high school, Charlotte and I had a close relationship. We were in the same grade even though she was a year younger because she started school earlier than usual. We even took many classes together when we first entered high school. Among them was Noah, the new student at the school and a recent arrival to our town. He won my affection almost instantly, and sadly, Charlotte did too. Charlotte and I had dated other boys previously, but this seemed different since Noah was adorable and kind. I chose to speak with Charlotte after realizing that we both liked him. Out of respect for our relationship, we agreed that neither of us would approach him or attempt to date him. We believed that we would be able to get over our infatuation, but that wasn't the case. Because we took the same classes, the three of us became good friends and my affections for Noah deepened as I got to know him better. I maintained our relationship entirely platonic, even though it was obvious he was interested in me. He frequently flirted. Charlotte couldn't be harmed. We didn't talk about Noah at all since we knew it was a delicate subject. As folks were getting ready for prom in their senior year, everything came to a head. When Noah revealed that Charlotte had asked him to prom and acknowledged her affections for him, I was on the verge of accepting another guy's prom offer. That Charlotte would renege on her vow to not pursue Noah astounded me. I was offended, and that was inappropriate. Noah informed me, however, that he had rejected her since he simply considered her a friend. Since he loved me, he acknowledged that he had observed her flirting with him over the years but had never returned the kind. Noah admitted that he needed clarification, which is why he had come to me. I had maintained my distance from him in order to keep my word to Charlotte, even though he was making an attempt to express his affections for me. He wanted to know whether there was a chance for us because our senior year was coming to a conclusion and college was approaching. He begged me to be honest because he would move on and think about asking someone else to prom if I didn't like him. I was confused by that talk. It was unbelievable to me that Noah had been fond of me all these time while Charlotte had been covertly betraying our agreement. The idea that someone I considered a sister would turn on me was painful. I skipped the remaining classes and went home early after asking Noah for a day to consider my options. After finding out, I couldn't bear to see Charlotte. Charlotte pretended nothing had happened when she got home. She didn't tell Noah about her confession. I couldn't resist and went up to her. I inquired as to whether she had actually confessed her feelings for Noah and asked him to prom. She said it was none of my business right away, getting defensive. But because we had made a vow, it was very much my business. Out of respect for Charlotte, I had repressed my feelings for Noah for years, but I later discovered that she had been pursuing him behind my back. It was unfair. I was in love with Noah by that point, not just smitten. I put Charlotte's sentiments ahead of my own, but she was unable to reciprocate. Our argument turned into a violent altercation. In her own words, Charlotte acknowledged that she had only promised to spare my feelings, because she thought Noah would pick her over me if he had to. Her conceit and treachery were intolerable. I made the decision right then and there that I would no longer prioritize my feelings over hers. I told Noah everything the following day, including our argument, Charlotte's betrayal, and the commitment we had made. He was sympathetic and offered to wait for me if I required more time. However, I was no longer able to suppress my emotions. We began dating the same day I told him I was in love with him. I have no regrets after 7 wonderful years together. After that day, Charlotte and I ceased communicating. Since we shared a residence, it was more difficult for me to break off our relationship than it was for Noah. I didn't mind that she relocated into the basement rather than a room with me. I never told our parents what had gone wrong, and I don't believe Charlotte did either, despite their repeated requests. We didn't talk to each other after that day. It was challenging at first, but we gradually adapted. Charlotte decided to attend a college across the nation, but Noah and I ended up attending the same one. This implied that I would only have to visit her on special occasions for a few years. Charlotte had begun dating a man from her college, and Noah and I were still together after graduation. Before long, we all started working, and Charlotte and I's argument began to seem like trivial high school drama. Charlotte and I would exchange courteous greetings during family get-togethers. We avoided in-depth discussions and stuck to casual banter, but we never tried to mend our relationship. Things began to change a little as we grew older. At least we could communicate. Charlotte told her college lover she was engaged last year. After I properly congratulated her, she expressed her desire for me to be present at her wedding. It was a bittersweet experience. We had always dreamed of being each other's maid of honor at our weddings since we were little. However, I was simply another visitor at her wedding. It was heartbreaking to know that our relationship would never be the same again, even though I was glad we were getting back on track and acting like grown-ups. We had been communicating ever since, and Charlotte even appeared to get along well with Noah. I thought it would feel weird, so I decided not to bring Noah as my +1 to her wedding out of respect. Charlotte said after the ceremony that she had moved on and didn't care anymore, so I could have brought Noah. For a time at least, I trusted her. Noah asked me to marry him a few months ago and I accepted without hesitation. The moment was ideal. I had begun working with a friend on her startup, and he had recently received a promotion at work. Although I had hoped for a drama-free, stress-free wedding, inviting Charlotte proved to be a mistake. When I got engaged, Charlotte congratulated me and I assumed everything was good. She agreed to attend the wedding when I invited her. I didn't anticipate any problems. The majority of our close friends and relatives stayed with us at the hotel outside of town where the wedding was held. The majority of the guests arrived the day before the wedding, but Noah, our parents, my bridal party and I arrived 2 days early. But Charlotte and her spouse showed up on the same day as us, saying it was a sincere error. I didn't know what she had planned, but I accepted it because I thought her explanation was plausible. Charlotte was loitering outside my room on the morning of my wedding as I was getting my cosmetics done. The other guests were either unwinding or getting ready for the ceremony, so it looked strange. Her behavior felt odd, but I tried to ignore it. I had about 1 hour before the wedding when my mother and bridesmaids left to get dressed independently. I chose to go for a walk down the hallway outside my room since I was feeling anxious. I remained on the same floor since I didn't want anyone to see me wearing my dress. Charlotte stopped me at that point. "I need to talk about something important," she said, pulling me aside. I allowed her to speak out of curiosity, even though we hadn't had any private conversations in years. I was stunned by what she said. Charlotte disclosed that she had arrived early on purpose rather than by accident. According to her, Noah asked her to arrive early so he could speak with her privately. She said he had admitted that he had changed his mind and wasn't sure he wanted to marry me. According to her, Noah admitted to her that he had fallen in love with her and no longer loved me. He planned to elope with her, she said, and they had been communicating covertly for weeks. Even if her story was absurd, I was astounded by her sheer boldness. She was obviously attempting to ruin my wedding, but I wasn't going to allow it to happen. Charlotte stated their conversations were purely platonic, but she said she and Noah had been communicating behind my back for a while. She said, however, that Noah had fallen in love with her and begged her to come early so they could flee together. She claimed that ever since she got to the hotel, he had been putting pressure on her. She claimed he lacked the courage to face me head-on because he was afraid I would respond wildly and he didn't want to be present. Then she said she had to be honest with me since she couldn't follow through. As usual with Charlotte, she felt that an hour prior to my wedding was the ideal time to come clean. I could tell she was lying right away. I knew Noah would never do such a thing since I had total faith in him. He was honest and would have spoken with me openly about any issues rather than using devious tactics. He found Charlotte's story to be totally out of character, and it was clear that she was attempting to spoil my special day by pretending to be worried about me. Her performance enraged me. She was intentionally attempting to generate drama where none didn't exist while feigning concern for me and our relationship. I made the decision to reverse her. I contacted her spouse and said nothing. I followed him on Instagram and called him using the app even though I didn't have his number. I looked like I might be phoning Noah while I stood in front of Charlotte, acting like I was inconsolable. Charlotte didn't stop me because she probably thought I was going to confront him or end our relationship, which was precisely what she wanted. She had no idea that I was actually phoning her spouse, who was located in another area of the hotel. I was relieved when her husband responded. I asked if any of what Charlotte had told me was real, and reiterated what she had said. Charlotte stayed mute at this point, probably believing that I was speaking to Noah. She was unaware that I had outwitted her. I put the call on speaker so Charlotte could hear her husband's response when he answered. He was so taken aback that he declared he would return to their room right away. Charlotte became alarmed when she noticed I wasn't talking to Noah. She began to yell at me, saying I was attempting to ruin her marriage. Calmly, I explained that I was just giving her a taste of my medicine. After that, I returned to my room and informed my bridesmaids about the situation. I no longer trusted Charlotte, so I told them to make sure she didn't go to the ceremony. I was relieved that Charlotte wouldn't interfere with the ceremony. She was probably too preoccupied with attempting to mend the harm she and her husband had made to show up. Except for our parents, who questioned me about her afterwards, nobody at the wedding seemed to notice her absence. I didn't intend to explain, but I told them I would later. I called the hotel to inquire about Charlotte's room after the celebrations. She and her husband had checked out during the wedding, which pleased me. I was happy that no one mentioned the event during the reception and was grateful that they were gone. As I had hoped, the wedding's aftermath was pleasantly quiet. After I told Noah what had transpired, we laughed heartily. We learned that Charlotte and her husband were divorcing 1 week after the wedding. It was my parents who told me. Charlotte's husband had apparently called them, screaming about how terrible she was and insisting that they come retrieve her from their home. If she didn't go, he threatened to contact the police. They discovered the cause for the split when they picked her up. Charlotte's willful attempt to ruin my wedding had greatly offended her husband. I had told him the whole story, and it seems that her friends had been telling him for a long time how amazing Noah was and how Charlotte should have been the one with him. Putting aside the foolishness of her friends, her husband realized that Charlotte still harbored affections for Noah and had attempted to sabotage my wedding as a result. The last straw for him was that understanding. She was still in love with someone else, despite her denials, so he made the decision to dissolve their marriage. He was unable to accept that. My parents blamed me for Charlotte's divorce for some reason. They maintained that I ought to have avoided her marriage in spite of her behavior. They claimed that I had destroyed her marriage by phoning her spouse. They stopped interacting with me when I refused to apologize to Charlotte. I was unable to comprehend how I was at fault for this. I didn't ask Charlotte to try to ruin my wedding or behave in such a careless manner. I just gave a kind response. My parents and many of our shared acquaintances supported Charlotte, while Noah supported me. It enraged me. Update 1. I became aware of how unjust my parents and some of my friends were after reading encouraging responses on my initial post. I made the decision to break things off. They would keep accusing me and making me feel bad if I didn't. Distancing myself felt like the only course of action since I wasn't going to break down and apologize to Charlotte. Ironically, my parents were getting exactly what they wanted after refusing to talk to me because I refused to apologize. My friends' support for Charlotte demonstrated to me that they were never really friends in the first place. I made the decision to put Noah and my happiness first. Update 2. I went on our honeymoon with Noah. Even though I missed my parents, I wasn't too upset about losing contact with my alleged friends because it had been almost 2 weeks since the wedding. But it was painful not to speak to my parents. I frequently wanted to phone or text my stepdad or mom, but I restrained myself because I knew they had sided with Charlotte. As far as I could tell, Charlotte was living with them and probably spreading false information to make them even more hostile toward me. I could see why my stepdad wanted to help his daughter, but given her history, I couldn't understand why my mother wasn't on my side. My dad had betrayed her by leaving her for a friend. Charlotte had attempted to do the same to me, but my mother did not recognize the similarity. I decided to concentrate on enjoying my honeymoon for the time being. I didn't want to let pessimism destroy this once-in-a-lifetime moment with Noah. Update 3. My mother texted me on the 3rd day of our honeymoon. In an effort to be present and prevent disappointment, I refrained from opening it until we got home. I didn't want anything to ruin the great time Noah and I were enjoying. Update 4. Reading my mother's message was the first thing I did when I got home. She clarified that after allowing Charlotte to stay with them for a few days, she and my stepdad decided it was no longer acceptable. They finally decided enough was enough after Charlotte spent the entire time disparaging me. They chose to exclude Charlotte after seeing she had made a concerted effort to spoil my wedding. My parents expressed regret for their previous actions, acknowledging that they had made bad choices because they were overtaken by Charlotte's divorce. To make things right, they asked Noah and I to join them for dinner. I am quite happy. In the hopes of repairing our relationship, Noah and I accepted their invitation. Everything works out in the end. I only hope that this kind of situation never arises again. Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.